Good. Now I'll write the story. Names to avoid: Haley, Brandon, Brooke, Tessa, Claire, Diane, Ryan, Margaret, Natalie, Joel, Serena, Marcus, Adrian, Kevin, Patricia, Camille, Owen, Renata, Sandra, Lena, Derek, Elaine, Gwinnetta, Sandra, Lena, Derek, Elaine. I'll use Mara, narrator, Jess, sister, my husband, his son, male lay, flipping gender of antagonist for freshness, etc. That was the moment I stopped making excuses for him. Not for my husband. For his son. I'd been doing it for 2 years. Small adjustments, quiet compromises, swallowing things that didn't sit right because I kept telling myself it was temporary. That he was adjusting. That 19 was still young. That blended families were hard and patience was part of the deal. Then my sister walked into my salon on a Tuesday afternoon, and I ran out of patience entirely. She pushed the door open with her shoulder, which I noticed right away because she always uses her hand. It's a small thing, but when you've known someone your whole life, when you've shared a face with someone your whole life, you notice the small things. The way she favors her right side now. The way she's holding her arm against her body like she's trying to keep it close. I was in the middle of a blowout for a regular client. I didn't stop immediately. I finished the section I was on, said something light, set the dryer down. Then I really looked at her. The bruise started at her jaw and disappeared beneath the collar of her shirt. Her bottom lip was swollen on the left side. And her eyes, I know her eyes better than I know my own, were identical, always have been. Her eyes were doing that thing where she's already decided to say she's fine before you even ask. "Jess," I said. She shook her head quickly. I held up one finger to my client, mouthed 2 minutes, and walked my sister to the back room. She sat down on the small stool near the supply shelf and stared at her hands. I closed the door behind us. The noise from the salon floor dropped away, and what was left was just the two of us and whatever she was about to tell me. "Don't say you're fine," I said. "I'm not going to say I'm fine." "Then tell me what happened." She pressed her lips together. Took a breath, let it out slowly like she was measuring how much to give me, how much she thought I could handle. That part bothered me more than the bruise. "It was Colton," she said. "My husband's son." I didn't react right away. I've learned over the years that the first reaction isn't always the most useful one, and right now, useful was what my sister needed. "Tell me exactly what happened," I said. She had been staying at the house for 3 weeks. That was the arrangement while her apartment was being renovated. Water damage, a mess, the kind of situation that drags on longer than anyone expects. She was sleeping in the guest room, helping out, keeping to herself the way she always does, never asking for more than what she needs. Colton had a problem with it from the beginning, not openly. He didn't say "I don't want her here" outright, because that would have been a conversation. Instead, he made it felt. A comment here, a look there. The kind of low-grade hostility that's designed to be deniable if you ever try to name it out loud. She had let it go. Because that's what she does. Because she didn't want to cause problems in my home. Last night, he came in after midnight. She was still awake, she's always been a light sleeper, and she heard him moving through the kitchen, the sound of cabinet doors, the refrigerator. After a few minutes, she came down to get a glass of water. He was at the counter. Didn't acknowledge her. She went to the sink. Said goodnight. Started to leave. He said, "You don't have to keep acting like you live here." She stopped. Said something measured back. Something about being a guest. Not trying to intrude. He said, "That's exactly the problem. You're always here. In my space. Like you belong." She told him she would be gone in a week and a half. He said she should leave sooner. She said that wasn't her call, and he grabbed her arm. Not a shove. Not an accident. He grabbed her arm and shoved her back hard enough that she hit the corner of the counter, and when she put her hand up instinctively, he grabbed that wrist too and twisted until she pulled away. That was when the bruising started. The jaw came from catching the cabinet on her way down. She was on the floor. He looked at her for 1 second and walked back upstairs. She heard his door close. She lay there for a while. She wasn't even sure how long. Then she got up, put on her jacket, and drove to me. By the time she finished telling me all of this, I was very still. My client had rebooked herself. The salon had emptied out. The lights were on that warm evening setting I put them on it close, and neither of us had moved. "Does my husband know?" I asked. She shook her head. "He wasn't home?" "He came back around 2. I heard him." She paused. "I didn't come out?" I nodded once. "He texted me this morning asking how I slept?" There was no bitterness in how she said it, just fact. That made it worse somehow. I got up and got the first aid kit from under the cabinet. She let me clean the cut at her jaw without arguing. That was new. She usually argues. "You need to stay here tonight," I said. "I know." I finished with the antiseptic, pressed a bandage down gently. "I'm going to the house," I said. She looked up quickly. "To tell him?" I was quiet for a moment. And then an idea arrived. Not gradually, all at once. The kind that feels like it's been waiting just under the surface for exactly this moment. We look the same. We have always looked the same. Same face, same height, same way of moving to a room, different in the ways that matter. I've always been the one who says the thing out loud, and she's always been the one who absorbs. But to someone who doesn't know us well, we are indistinguishable. Colton had met my sister maybe 6 times in 2 years. He knew her enough to dismiss her. He didn't know her enough to know the difference. "I have another idea," I said. She watched me. "You stay here," I said. "I go home." "Not as me." She went very still. "Mara, he thinks he put you in your place," I said. "He thinks there were no consequences, that you got up off that floor and just quietly absorbed it the way you absorb everything. That's exactly what he thinks." I wasn't angry when I said it. I was precise. There's a difference. And as long as that's what he thinks, nothing changes. Not for him, not for the next person. She opened her mouth. Closed it. "I'm not going to touch him," I said. "That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" I looked at her. "I want him to show me who he is. Clearly, where it counts." She searched my face for a long time. She knows me better than anyone. She was looking for doubt, for the edge of impulse, for something that would make this a bad idea. She didn't find it. "You'd have to get the clothes right," she said finally. "I know your jacket. I know your bag." She exhaled. Something between a laugh and a sigh. "This is insane." "Probably," I agreed. "You could just talk to your husband." "I could," I said. "I've talked to my husband about Colton before. You know what happens." She knew. She'd heard those conversations secondhand, seen the way they resolved into nothing. My husband loved his son. He also loved the idea that his son was adjusting, coming around, just needing time. He believed that because it was easier than the alternative. One night I said, she was quiet, "You stay here, you sleep, you let me handle this." I met her eyes. "And tomorrow we have something real to show for it." "What do you mean?" I reached over to the shelf where I keep the small security camera I bought 6 months ago after a break-in 2 doors down. I'd been meaning to install it at the front of the salon. I hadn't gotten around to it. I held it up. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she looked away. Then she looked back. "Don't get hurt," she said. "I won't. And don't do anything, I won't." She pressed her lips together. Nodded once. I borrowed her jacket, her bag, her shoes. We're the same size in everything, always have been. I pulled my hair back the way she does, looser than I usually wear it. She watched me from the couch, arms wrapped around a mug of tea, something careful in her expression. "Text me," she said. "I'll text you." The drive home took 20 minutes. It was just past 11. The house lights were on downstairs, living room, kitchen. Colton's car was in the driveway. My husband's was not. He was staying overnight at a work conference 3 hours south, had told me 3 days ago. The kind of plan you file and forget. I sat in the car for a moment before going in. Not because I was afraid, because I wanted to be clear on what this was. Not revenge. Not escalation. Evidence. There is a version of events where a person can always claim it didn't happen the way you said, that you misunderstood, that they didn't mean it, that you're exaggerating. You give them enough uncertainty and they will use every inch of it. I wasn't going to give him that. I checked the camera once, clipped it to the inner lining of my sister's bag at an angle that would be almost invisible, pressed record. Then I went inside. He was in the living room. TV on, some sports recap, legs up on the coffee table the way my husband has asked him not to do. He didn't look up right away. "Hey," I said. I kept my voice soft. A little tired. The way my sister sounds after a long day. He glanced over, looked back at the TV. "Thought you'd be gone by now." I set the bag down near the door, moved into the kitchen. Got a glass from the cabinet. "Still here for another week," I said. He didn't respond. The silence was deliberate. He was giving me exactly what he'd given her all along, the particular coldness of someone who has decided you don't deserve acknowledgement. I filled the glass, drank some, stood there. "You okay?" he said, not warmly. Probing, testing whether last night had made me smaller. "I'm fine," I said. A pause. "You fall down again." He said it with that particular edge. The one that knows you can't call it cruelty outright. The one that's built to survive denial. Something settled in my chest. Not anger. Clarity. "I didn't fall," I said. He looked over at me then. Really looked. There was something flickering behind his eyes. Not guilt, not quite, more like curiosity. Like he was checking the temperature of the room. "You should probably be more careful," he said. "Careful," I repeated. He smiled slightly, the kind of smile that doesn't reach anywhere. "In unfamiliar spaces," he added. "Accidents happen." I turned so I was facing him fully. "That wasn't an accident last night," I said. The smile dropped. "And I think you know that," I said. He sat up slowly, taking his feet off the table. "You want to do this again," he said. His voice changed. Not louder, but harder. "Because I told you. This isn't your house. You're a guest. And guests don't get to talk to me like..." "Like what?" I said. He stood up. "Like you belong here." There it was. I held his gaze. "You put your hands on me," I said. My voice was steady. Not shaking, not rising. "You got in my way," he said. I was getting a glass of water. At midnight, he stepped around the coffee table. Not charging, not exactly. The slow, deliberate movement of someone who is used to people stepping back when he steps forward. You're always in the middle of everything. You and your little routine and "my presence bothers you," I said. Not a question. Yes, direct. No hesitation. "It does." "Why?" He blinked. Like the question was unexpected. "Because you don't belong here," he said, slower now, like he was explaining something to someone who couldn't understand. I took one small step toward him instead of back. His posture shifted. Almost imperceptibly. But it shifted. "And you've decided that," I said. "My dad's house, your father's house," I said. "Not yours." Something crossed his face. A flash of something sharp and fast, the kind of thing you only catch if you're watching for it. "You have a problem with that," I said. "Get out," he said. "I will," I said. "In a week and a half," like I said. He moved first, not a shove like the night before. He grabbed my arm, same arm I realized, the same instinct, the same place. And his grip was tight. I let it happen for exactly 2 seconds, long enough Then I pulled back, stepped away, and looked at him. "Do that again," I said quietly, "and we are done with private conversations about this." He dropped my arm. His breathing was slightly uneven. "You're threatening me," he said. "I'm telling you what comes next," I said. He stood there. And for the first time, something changed in his expression. It wasn't fear exactly. It was the dawning recognition that this moment was not going to disappear the way the last one had. That it wasn't going to be absorbed and minimized and folded quietly into nothing. He took a step back. "Get out of my face," he said. But the certainty was thinner now. I could hear it. I moved past him without a word, picked at my sister's bag from near the door. "This isn't over," he said. "You're right," I said. "It's not." And I left. I drove back to the salon, texted my sister from the parking lot. "I'm back. Safe. Don't worry." She replied in seconds with just, "Okay." I didn't sleep. I sat at the front counter with the camera, pulled the footage, watched it twice on my phone. You could see him clearly. The grab, the grip, the moment he decided his discomfort was enough justification. The moment he stepped forward, expecting her to step back. There was no angle that was kind to him. That was the point. I called my husband at 7 in the morning. He answered on the second ring. Voice still sleep-rough, immediately concerned when he heard my tone. "I need you to come home," I said. "What happened? Is everyone is okay," I said. "But I need you home before you do anything else today." He was there by 9:30. I met him at the door. My sister was at the kitchen table, her jacket off, the bruising along her jaw visible in the morning light. He saw it immediately. His expression shifted. That particular sequence, confusion, concern, something tightening behind the eyes. He looked at me. "What happened to her?" he asked. "Come sit down," I said. We sat at the kitchen table, all three of us. My sister kept her hands around her mug and didn't look up. I told him. Clearly in order, without editorializing. What she'd told me. The night before last. What she'd been absorbing for 3 weeks. What she hadn't told me, because she didn't want to cause problems in my home. He listened. I could see him listening the way people listen when they're simultaneously taking something in and searching for a way to receive it that hurts less. "And last night," he said when I stopped, I pulled out my phone, set it on the table, pressed play. He watched the whole thing. He didn't say anything. His jaw worked slightly once, and then he went still, the way I had gone still the night before in the back room when my sister told me who had done this. When it ended, he put his elbows on the table and pressed his hams against his face. The kitchen was very quiet. He grabbed her, he said. Not to me. Just out loud. "Yes," I said. She wasn't. She was getting a glass of water, I said. He didn't say anything for a while. "I need to call him," he said finally. "Yes," I said. "You do." He looked at me then, and I saw something I hadn't expected. Not defensiveness, not the instinct to minimize, something broken open, something finally seeing itself clearly. "I knew he was struggling," he said. "I know you did," I said. "I didn't think you thought it would settle," I said. Gently, honestly. "You thought if you gave it time." He pressed his lips together. Nodded once. "It didn't settle," I said. "It just moved somewhere I couldn't see it." He exhaled. "I'm sorry," he said. He was looking at my sister when he said it, not at me. At her. She looked up for the first time. "I should have seen it sooner," he said. She nodded. Slow and careful. And then she said, "I should have told Mara sooner." Something in the room shifted slightly, just slightly. The particular relief of two people deciding to be honest with each other at the same time. He made the call from the back porch. I could see him through the glass door but not hear him. He stood very still the whole time, one hand in his pocket looking out at the yard. The conversation lasted about 12 minutes. When he came back in, his face had the particular exhausted look of someone who has had to say hard things to someone they love. He's coming home tonight, he said. I told him we need to sit down. Okay, I said. I told him about the footage. I nodded. He went quiet, my husband said. For a long time. That meant something. It meant the performance dropped. That underneath the entitlement, something registered. He needs to apologize to her, I said. Yes, he agreed. No hesitation. And he needs to not be here for a while, I added. He looked at me. Not permanently, I said. But there needs to be space. Real space, not just tension we're all pretending doesn't exist. He nodded slowly. His mom's in Portland, he said. She's been asking him to visit. That works, I said. And I think he needs to talk to someone, he said. This one was harder for him. You could hear it. The admission that time alone wasn't going to do it, professionally. Yes, I said. I think so too. He looked at my sister again. Does she? He started, then stopped. Tried again. Is she going to be okay? She answered for herself. I'll be okay. He nodded. She going to be okay? She answered for herself. I'll be okay. He nodded. He believed her. So did I. That evening, my husband sat across from his son at the kitchen table and played the video. I wasn't in the room. That was intentional. This needed to be between them. My sister and I were in the living room. We could hear voices, low and serious, but not the words. At one point, it went very quiet for a long time. That quiet told me more than the voices had. After about an hour, my husband came out. He wants to talk to her, he said. My sister looked at me. You don't have to, I said. I know, she said. She set her mug down, stood up, smoothed the front of her shirt. I will. I waited. She was in there for maybe 15 minutes. When she came back, she sat down next to me and didn't say anything for a moment. What did he say? I asked. She thought about it. He said he didn't think about it. She paused, not like as an excuse, more like he finally heard how that sounds. Did he apologize? He said he was sorry. She turned her glass around in her hands. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was real. That was enough. For now. Not everything. But enough. He left for Portland 2 days later. My husband drove him to the airport. I wasn't there for that either. Some things need to happen without an audience. What I know is that he started seeing someone within the first week, a therapist his mother helped him find. My husband told me this on a Thursday evening, standing in the kitchen while I was making dinner, like it was a small piece of news. Like it wasn't also the thing we'd both been waiting for without quite saying so. Good, I said. Yeah, he said. He was quiet for a moment. She said he's talking. Good, I said again. My sister stayed with me for another 2 weeks after that. Not because she needed to, because she wanted to, and because I wanted her there. We fell into an easy routine: coffee in the mornings, evenings in the salon when I had late clients, the particular comfort of someone who knows you without having to explain anything. Her bruises faded the way bruises do, slowly and unevenly, the colors shifting before they disappear. By the end of the second week, you'd have to know to look for them. One afternoon, she was helping me restock the color shelves. A system only we understood, a particular order developed over years, and she stopped and looked at me. He never knew it was you, she said. No, I said. What would have happened if he had? I thought about it honestly. Probably the same thing, I said. Just a different conversation. She went back to the shelf. Then, you were scary, you know. I watched the footage again. I wasn't scary, I said. You were completely calm, she said. That's the scary part. I didn't argue. You could have handled it differently, she said. Not criticism, observation. Yes, I said. I could have, but you didn't. No. She slid a row of bottles into place. Why not? I thought about that for a moment. Because I needed him to show it clearly, I said. Well, I could still do something with it. She considered this. And if there'd been nothing to show? Then I would have had a very different conversation with my husband, I said. And we'd be in a very different place right now. She nodded slowly. Outside, the street was doing its Tuesday afternoon thing, the parking lot filling up, the coffee place next door cycling through its lunch rush, ordinary life moving at its ordinary pace, none of it aware of anything that had happened, none of it needing to be. I should have told you sooner, she said. Yes, I said. She looked at me. Expected more. But you're telling me now, I said. So. That was enough. Weeks later, Colton called me directly. I almost didn't answer. Not out of anger. I had set that down somewhere and not picked it back up. More out of not knowing what I wanted the conversation to be. I answered on the fourth ring. He didn't say a lot. He wasn't someone who had found eloquence yet, probably wouldn't for a while. But he said he was sorry, not like the first time which I'd heard secondhand. This time to me directly. I said I heard him. He asked how my sister was. I said she was good. He said that was good. We were both quiet for a moment. I didn't think about how it would land, he said. I know, I said. That's the thing I keep thinking about, he said. Not the what, the why I didn't think. That was the most honest thing he'd said in any version of any conversation I'd been part of. I didn't say so. But I noted it. That's what you're supposed to be figuring out, I said. He said he knew. We hung up shortly after. I stood in the kitchen for a minute, phone in my hand, processing nothing in particular. Just sitting with the weight of how much had changed in a few weeks, and how little it looked like from the outside. My husband came in. Saw my expression. Him? He asked. Yeah. He didn't ask what was said. He just stood beside me for a moment, and that was its own kind of answer. There are things I would do differently. I've thought about that too. I might have gone to my husband the morning after it happened. I might have trusted that the footage, even without the night I staged, would have been enough to show him something real. I might have skipped the performance and gone straight to the consequence. Maybe. I don't know. What I know is that Colton looked at a version of my sister and expected her to disappear. And instead, something held its ground. Something didn't move when he expected it to. And that, whatever else happened that night, cracked something open. Not punishment. Correction. You can spend years trying to manage the damage from something that never got addressed at the source. Or you can address it. It's not easy. It's not clean. There's no version where everyone ends up exactly where they want to be, and no one carries anything forward. But there's a version where things are different than they were, where a line that kept shifting finally stops moving, where someone who never had to reckon with what they were doing finally does. That's not justice exactly. Justice is a bigger word than what I have to offer, but it's close enough to the beginning of something that I'll take it. I've thought a lot about what I would do differently, not obsessively, not the way you do when you're second-guessing yourself into paralysis, but honestly, the way you do when something big has passed through your life and left a mark, and you want to actually learn something from it instead of just surviving it. The truth is, I probably waited longer than I should have. Not that night specifically. I think what I did that night was the right call or close enough to it. But in the years before, all the small moments where something felt off and I smoothed it over because it was easier than pulling at the thread. I told myself Colton was adjusting. I told myself my husband would figure it out. I kept the peace in ways that let something quietly grow into something that eventually put my sister on the floor of my kitchen. That's the part I sit with. Not guilt exactly, but accountability. There's a difference. Guilt is about feeling bad. Accountability is about understanding your part in how something unfolded and deciding what you're going to do about it going forward. What I've come to understand is that every time we let something pass without naming it, we're not actually keeping the peace. We're just relocating the damage. It doesn't go away. It moves somewhere less visible and keeps building there, quietly, until it can't stay quiet anymore. Jess absorbed 3 weeks of it because she didn't want to disrupt my home. That's the kind of person she is. She always has been. She holds things in to make room for everyone else. I love that about her, and I've watched it cost her more than it should. What I wish she'd known, what I want anyone who recognizes themselves in her to know, is that protecting the people around you from discomfort is not the same as protecting them from harm. She thought she was being considerate. What she was actually doing was carrying something alone that she didn't have to carry alone. And Colton, I don't think he was a bad person in the way that some people are bad, calculated and deliberate and beyond reach. I think he was someone who had never been made to reckon with the weight of his own actions. That's its own kind of damage, growing up in a world that keeps reshaping itself around you instead of asking you to reshape yourself. Nobody did him any favors by letting things slide. Not my husband, not the people before us. By the time he shoved my sister into that counter, he genuinely didn't think it mattered. That's not evil. That's what happens when someone has never been held to a real standard. Which is why the camera mattered more than anything I could have said to him. Words he could argue with. Tone he could dismiss. The footage gave him nothing to argue with. And that's where something actually shifted in him. Not when I confronted him, not when my husband raised his voice, but when he sat in that kitchen and watched himself and couldn't find a single angle that made it look like anything other than what it was. That's what I mean when I say correction instead of punishment. Punishment makes you pay. Correction makes you see. And you can't change what you haven't seen clearly. The part that stayed with me most is something my sister said near the end of it all. She said she should have told me sooner. And I agreed because she should have. But I also understood why she didn't. When you've spent your whole life managing everyone else's comfort, you start to believe that your pain is less urgent than their peace. That's something no one teaches you directly. You just absorb it from 100 small moments over the years, until it becomes the way you move through the world. If this story stays with you, I hope it's because of that. Not the switch, not the footage, not any of the dramatic parts. I hope it's the quieter thing underneath all of it. The reminder that what we allow, we teach. What we absorb without naming, we make permanent. And what we finally say out loud, however late, has the power to change the shape of things going forward. Not because some cosmic system rewards us for it, just because clarity, when it finally arrives, tends to stick.